Well, hello again, friends. It is good to be with you. My name is Mark. I am one of the hosts on the Imago Nutrition Podcast, along with my sister-in-law, business partner, registered dietitian extraordinaire, Danielle Glesney. So, Danielle, how are things up in St. Louis?
They are great, bright and sunny today. I hear we're going to get some cold weather soon, so trying to take advantage of the weather today.
I know I saw a meme. We're down in Tennessee, obviously, and I saw a meme recently that was like the weather is pulling Powerball numbers because it's just like up, down. It's just random. Like we're having it too. We had like an 80-degree day the other day, and then it's like it was 40, and so it's just up, down, left, right. So yeah, you guys have had side note. You guys have had an exciting weekend up in St. Louis because I'm a big soccer freak, and you all just launched the newest MLS soccer team, the City SC. And St. Louis has a huge history of soccer, which I didn't even know about until I researched it as to why it was such a big deal for St. Louis. So, yeah, you guys got some things going on up there in STL.
Very cool. Thanks for informing me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just thought I'd drop that on you. So, and we're going to see each other. I'm driving up to see you this week and going to pick up Jared, your husband, my brother. We're going to drive up to Minnesota for a family thing. So it'll be fun to see you twice in the next week and a half if you can stand that, but I'll have the kids with me, so that'll buffer the crazy. So, but that said, so again, we are excited to be here with you all. If you're listening, whether you're new or you've been with us for a while, and so this is the podcast where we try to give you practical nutrition strategies to help you reach your goals and your family to flourish. And so today, if you are someone who, let's say, you are happy with your current body weight, you're happy with your current body composition in general, you don't have a specific weight loss goal right now, you don't have a weight gain goal right now, you're in what we would call, a maintenance phase. And, or maybe you're in between weight loss goals, right? So maybe you've done a phase, which we do recommend. We don't expect you to be or want you to be losing weight all year round, year after year. Maybe you're in between fat loss phases and you're wondering what's sort of the middle ground. I'm not gaining weight, I'm not losing weight, I'm in this maintenance period. We are going to discuss that, and we have a question from someone that I think it's going to be fun for us to sort through some of our notes. So Danielle and I will compare notes in relation to the specific question. That said, if you have a question, we love hearing from you all. And so if you're listening to this and you have a question or you've heard something that you're curious if it's true, if you have a problem you're trying to solve with your nutrition, we would love to do so for you as part of one of our free services, which is, of course, this podcast. And so you can ask us that question by going to imagonutrition.com/podcast. Okay, so that'll take you to a page. Just scroll down that page a little bit and you'll see a form there. You can fill out that form and send us your question, and it may end up as a topic on a future episode. So with that, Danielle, we are going to compare some notes, right? We haven't necessarily gone and sorted through all our notes together. That's kind of the fun side of this is we're going to jump into this from both of our perspectives. We're going to talk about the same topic, of course, and compare and contrast our notes. I don't think there'll be much to contrast, but hopefully it'll be super informative because the question today came from Catherine in California. And Catherine's question is this. And I love this question for a couple words within this, right? Very succinctly, Catherine asks, what are some habits to maintain a healthy weight? And I love this question. It's got some particular words in it. I'm also going to, and I think we're aligned on this, Danielle, we are going to assume that someone is at a healthy weight, that they understand that they're in this place where they are there, right? So whether you want to get there or you are there, we want to talk through some notes relative to this question about what are some habits then to maintain that. Again, not looking to lose weight, not looking to gain weight necessarily, looking to maintain a healthy weight. And so with that, at the risk of me talking too much, I'll get us started and then we'll just kind of ping pong back and forth, Danielle, and we'll talk about some notes and considerations. Again, we may have some overlap. We may just be totally in sync on some things. We may have some chatter back and forth, but let's get started. And so I would say the first thing is simply remembering because I'm the energy balance guy. In order for you to maintain weight in general, or on average over time, you want to be consuming about the same amount of calories as you are burning on average over time. That's quite literally how the body maintains its current weight. And so that is what's known as generally a TDEE, a total daily energy expenditure, right? So if on average you burn about 2,500 calories, if you want to stay at that body weight, you would be consuming, again, on average, about 2,500 calories. That is maintenance. That is not really an option. That is not my opinion. It's not a theory, not a diet. It's not even my experience. It's a fundamental law of thermodynamics. So all that's to say, if you're really healthy with that weight, what you want to do is you want to channel these habits into the context of ultimately having energy balance that is neutral. Therefore, you're not losing weight or gaining weight, you're maintaining that weight. So with that, because again, I'm the energy balance guy, I have to do that. So within that energy balance, however, and Danielle's where we can start to kind of go back and forth, I would say you want to begin by fueling energy balance, because calories are energy, right? With what we teach as the 4 pillars of nutrition. And I think this is one of the healthiest ways that you can lean in and find the foods you love and consume a healthy array of nutrient-dense foods. And we teach something called the 4 pillars of nutrition. By the way, you can go to our website, you can click in the menu or the navigation. There's an entire tab now in the navigation dedicated to the 4 pillars. Okay, so you can go and you can explore each one of the 4 pillars. You can take a look at the nutrient density, the nutrients that are contained in these things. You can take a look at specific foods. These are not the only foods you can eat. However, these are foods that we would argue that if you want to maintain healthy short and long-term outcomes, and in this question, if you want to maintain that healthy weight, you want to be consuming predominantly the 4 pillars. What are they? Lean meat, seafood and dairy, fruits and veggies, whole grains, nuts and seeds. That's all I'll say on that. Again, you can go to the website and explore those more. But that's my first one, Danielle, is understanding the context, right? So you're not thrown off if weight does go up or down. You do have an energy balance consideration. However, within that, if you're just normally eating more and more of a wide array of these 4 pillars of nutrition, we've seen it in the research, that is one way that the body establishes and maintains a good, healthy weight. So any thoughts on that or additions or the next one? It's up to you. What do you want to do?
I just thought it was funny because I was trying to hold back.
You're laughing at me already.
It was like definitely 2 in 1 right there, but that's just how you operate.
That's true.
So
that's true.
Really funny. Well, I will try to do the same thing. Not really, but I was going to, go back on the first thing you said as far as the maintaining the neutral energy balance. Mm-hmm. On the National Weight Registry of the best ways to maintain weight is any type of tracking. So it doesn't mean you're necessarily calorie counting, but any type of tracking could be, weighing yourself once a week, or you could, track once a week your calorie intake. But any type of tracking, maybe you prefer measurements, body measurements. Any type of tracking is always on the National Weight Registry of the best way to maintain a healthy body weight. So that was kind of in that neutral energy balance tip that you had.
Good call.
And the other one was to kind of stay out of that diet mentality, whether you got to where your healthy body weight is in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. Looking back at it, maybe you have that assessment in your head. Or maybe you just feel like it was really restrictive, but you're happy where you're at. How to stay there is not necessarily to keep that diet mentality. I need to avoid bread. I need to avoid pasta. You can still, as he just described, have any foods, but maintain that neutral energy balance. So
that's awesome.
I think that was, I don't know if that was different than your first tip, or we can let you have the floor here and then I'll jump in again.
Sweet. No, it was perfect. I mean, those things work in concert, right? And when it comes, I am, can you hear me? Are we having an internet glitch?
Yes. Yes, you're delayed, but that's okay.
People heard that.
Keep going.
I'm a little delayed. Okay. All right. So yeah, within that, of course, there's several ways you can track. You can keep an eye on your food. We've even seen in the research, just keeping a food log, just jotting down what you eat, is a way of kind of forming a natural guardrail around some of your eating patterns. So yeah, with that, next one I would say is that within that, I would say to place a healthy emphasis on protein in your diet for many reasons. One, protein is the primary functional and structural component of virtually every part of the body. It's found in virtually every part of the body. It starts at a cellular level. It helps build enzymes. It helps build hormonal profiles. It builds organs. It builds tissue. It pours out, as I say, through our skin, through our hair, through our nails. And so protein is a lot more than just getting big muscles. It has to do with the structural components of our body. And so I would say a healthy emphasis on protein, which again will kind of help preserve muscle tissue, growth, metabolism, et cetera, et cetera. It's also highly satiating, along with fiber, which we'll talk about next, or at least that's the next one on my list. It helps keep you full. And so they've done studies where they allow people to eat as much as they want. And then what they control is in the first half of the study, they only allow people to eat ultra processed, hyper palatable food that's typically low in protein, low in fiber. Guess what? People started gaining weight. Why? Because they were over consuming their calories. Okay. Then in the second half of the study, same people, ad libitum, they could eat as much as they want. And they controlled their access to nutrient dense foods, basically the 4 pillars as we teach it. Those people, their bodies began to lose weight and return to a healthy maintenance weight simply because the body was satiated. It was full. It was nourished, right? It didn't need to overconsume calories. And so all that's to say, having a healthy focus of protein, and then very practically, so what does this mean, right? So with each one of these, we want to kind of have just a practical takeaway. So with energy balance, the practical takeaway is get out of that diet mindset, focus on those 4 pillars, okay? So with protein specifically, this could be an area that you just simply choose, even if you're not tracking calories. You could just take a look at where is your protein intake currently. You could just track that for a couple of weeks and see what are you averaging. I would say the guidance that I've seen in some literature around optimal health, right? So this isn't weight loss specific. It's not muscle gain specific. It's not athlete specific. It's not elderly specific. It's not pregnant specific. It's optimal health. I would say a good target is 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So real quick calculation, if you're curious, because you're American and you're like, you just said kilogram and I don't do kilograms. That's for the European folk or the rest of the world. This is quick calculation, very easy. Pull out your phone, whip up your calculator, take your current body weight in pounds, multiply that by 0.4535. That equals your body weight in kilograms. Then take that and multiply it by 1.6. That's the amount of protein in general you should consume per day. So for me, I'm currently right around 180 pounds. Okay. So for me, 1.6 looks like about 130 grams of protein. Okay. So just as a reference, but do the calculation, run it on your own. So for many reasons, metabolic reasons, muscle health reasons, hormonal reasons, enzyme reasons, structural reasons, I would say a healthy focus on protein in targeting that 1.6 grams. And then, so the question might be, well, where do I get that protein? Glad you asked. Back to the 4 pillars: lean meat, seafood, dairy, and then plant-based proteins as well. All of that is woven into those 4 pillars. So that's my next one, Danielle, is a healthy focus, not an obsession or an overconsumption, but a healthy focus on protein included in every meal. Your thoughts on that? Or additions or compliments or criticisms? I
did have eat minimally processed foods. Okay, so we can cross that off because that's the same. Mm-hmm. I'll just move into my next one. It's a part 1 of 2, mindful eating. So my nice. Point would be eating slowly without distractions. So whether you're eating the protein mm-hmm. food first on your plate or kind of alternating all the different foods on your plate, just eating slowly without distractions can make a difference in really listening to your body so you don't accidentally overeat, which is possible when mm-hmm. you are watching TV or playing on your phone or, just eating too quickly because you're in a rush. So, which is, our whole culture.
So true. So true. Awesome. All right. Is it back to me?
It is. Yeah.
I think it is. So I already kind of tipped us off. I think fiber would be next. I would focus on fiber. I can't take credit. Danielle, when we first started working together a couple years ago, you started being like, Mark, you're a nutrition guy, but you're not, probably not getting enough fiber. I think the stat is something like 95% of Americans are not getting fiber. I would like to believe I was accidentally getting proper fiber just because I had, fairly, good eating habits. But lo and behold, once I started tracking fiber, come to find out, wasn't quite hitting optimal intake. And so fiber has a whole host of benefits. By the way, there's a lot of conversation going on about gut health. Fiber is really on the front lines of gut health and all that emerging science. It's found in nutrient-dense foods. So if you are focused on hitting a fiber target, chances are you're going to have to find that in some of those minimally processed foods, those whole foods. Again, back to our 4 pillars. So when we talk about lean meat, seafood, and dairy, the other 3 are incredibly good sources of fiber. So that's the fruits and veggies, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. Okay. So found in these nutrient-dense foods. It's also highly satiating. So again, it's another way that you can satisfy your body and tilt the math in your favor without having to track calories is by focusing on things like protein and fiber, because your body fills up, says, hey, we're good in terms of that. And so you don't run near the risk of over consuming calories as you do with foods that are deficient in protein, deficient in fiber, highly processed, hyper palatable, et cetera, et cetera. So very practically what that looks like, again, apart from, hey, fruits and veggies, whole grains, nuts, and seeds, which again, these things are all built into the 4 pillars. Very practically, the USDA dietary guidelines for Americans, if you are a male that is 50 years old or younger, your target is 31 to 34 grams of fiber per day. If you are a male 51 and older, you want to focus on 28 grams daily. If you are a female age 50 and younger, 25 to 28 grams daily. And women age 51 and older, focus on 22 grams daily. And I think, Danielle, you would agree, is that we want to just kind of gradually work our way up, right? So fiber is just a carbohydrate that passes through your body undigested. And so it can create a little bit of GI distress, right? If consumed in large amounts, particularly dramatically different large amounts. So all we would say is maybe begin by taking a look at what's my current protein or my current fiber intake. And then relative to your age and your sex, start slowly building up your fiber intake over the course of a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months, until you just get to a place where your habits, back to the question, where your habits are naturally lending itself to hitting that optimal fiber intake. So that was my next one, was fiber. What are your thoughts, or your next one, Danielle?
I love it. I love it for sure. My next one, so part 2 of the mindful eating tip would be watching snacking. So I think there are benefits to snacking for sure. So if you're going to go a long time between meals, obviously we don't want to be over hungry for the meal that's coming next. So the only problem with snacking, most often it is not out of hunger. So it's out of emotion, such as stressed, bored, lonely, tired. So if you're not eating because you're hungry, then you don't know when to stop. So really just making sure you are hungry. So there's questions like, am I hungry enough? I fill in the blank with to eat my least favorite food. So that means you're actually belly hunger. Am I hungry enough to eat something that sounds good? That's mind hunger. So you're not actually hungry. It's just kind of maybe a routine you're used to eating at that time. And so that snack actually could be eliminated. So, that is one that I talk about a lot and try to practice on my own. So that's one of these things. When you gave me this question, Mark, is I was like, what kind of habits do I have that I feel like maybe people would like to know? So I think that is definitely one. I used to snack at night, and I felt it was a reward for myself, like I got the kids in bed. I'm so tired. I need a snack and a show. And, so I was like, I didn't need that snack. I didn't need the show, or some reading to calm my body down. So I think that's a really helpful way to maintain healthy body weight.
That's a good one. And I totally agree. And, just having 3 square meals a day is a profound habit. I would also say too, so I purpose to have a snack in the course of my workday. I like to have a snack, but here's the difference. That is when I purposefully insert what I call my half and half plates, my berry veggie plate. And so once a day, I typically have one of those, it's like 8 or 9 inch plates. And I fill half of that plate with like a veggie, whether it's like baby carrots or bell peppers diced up or cucumbers. Those are kind of 3 that I rotate quite a bit. And then the other half of that plate, I have berries. It might just be like raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, strawberries. It might be a combination of those. But I purpose to snack on a fruit and a veggie plate. And then that sort of fulfills some of that serving that I want to get of those foods, but takes place as a snack as opposed to my, my morning breakfast, my lunch, or my dinner. And so sometimes that's a mid-morning snack for me. Sometimes it's a mid-afternoon. But again, those are all woven into foods that I want to be consuming already. So even just thinking about purposing a snack could be a beneficial tactic as well. So it's very cool. I would say my next one is water intake. That's key. It should not shock anyone. Chances are, I've been doing this 15 years. I don't have to convince anyone of the importance of water. I've never met anyone. It's like, what? Water is important? I had no clue. It's like, no, you had biology at 5th grade and they said it was the foundation of life. And you've sort of known that for a long time. So I could rattle off 100 reasons why water is important, physiologically, neurologically, biologically, et cetera, et cetera. But suffice it to say, a big one is just that water, of course, helps satiate our body, right? It acts as an appetite control agent. Again, going back to weight maintenance, consuming that water will just satisfy your body in a big way. Yes, it has so many other benefits, but at a very practical level, fuels your muscle, fuels your, lubricates your joints. I could go on and I won't, but suffice it to say, water is incredibly important for a ton of reasons. And so I know, Danielle, you and I, if you're watching us on YouTube, we both have our water jugs nearby. I've got my half-gallon bottle. I saw her sipping it before we hit record. And so just always sipping on water, right? Not only for the appetite control agent, as kind of harsh as that sounds, but just for so many metabolic reasons, so many physiological reasons, water is incredibly important. So if you're looking for a practical, what do I do with that? In general, here's a baseline. Again, this is not something you want to try to reach for like on a good day. This is something that you want to build your habits so that this is now your foundation. Your foundation as a male, according to the dietary reference intakes, should be about 125 ounces. That is basically a gallon. A gallon is 128. And so again, if you're on YouTube, the bottle that I'm holding right now is a half gallon. I drink at least 2 of these a day. Okay. Now I have activity. I'm sipping throughout the day. I have coffee, which technically, contains water. And so it goes above and beyond that gallon, as it should, relative to activity. So for guys, 125 ounces. And I hear this all the time. And oh, by the way, in ladies, it's 91 ounces. Again, that's per the DRI. I wish it was like a more rounded number. I wish it was like either 90 or 95. I figure it out. But it's 91. So that's what it is until they update it. But I also hear this. This is just kind of a side note. I hear people that are like, I drink enough water, Mark. I'm totally fine. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, just track it for a week. I can count on one hand the amount of people that came back and said, yeah, I was absolutely hitting that number all the time. Because what happens, people come back like, oh, I'm going to the bathroom a little bit more. I'm like, well, it's because you weren't really hitting the amount of water you thought you were before. And so, it takes your body a little time to adjust, but all said and done, focus on hitting that 125 ounces if you're a male, 91 ounces if you're a female. Again, it goes up from there. That's not on a good day, again, like, I'm going to hit that every once in a while. That should be your new baseline. So that was my next one, was water intake. I hope that makes sense, but thoughts or?
Yep. I had,
from Danielle Glessney.
I have a water bottle with you at all times was one of mine. So I'll just move on to the next one.
I'm so glad I had mine for this episode.
Okay, so my next one is have a stocked pantry, fridge, and freezer. So I feel like making sure you have the good foods on hand is pretty crucial. One, if you have them in the house, you've already purchased them. You don't want to waste money for them going bad. There's tips to remind yourself that. I know you buy it and you might out of sight, out of mind, right? They're hiding in the drawers of the refrigerator, or obviously it's in the pantry, not on the countertop. So I always have a bowl of tomatoes on my counter, a bowl of apples, oranges, kiwi. Did I say bananas? Yeah. So I have a fruit, a fruit bowl, and typically tomatoes. Sometimes for the veggies, they are mostly in the fridge. So I try to keep them on the top shelves of the fridge so that they're definitely in your view. Specifically speaking, the meat should be below on the bottom of your fridge, so there's no leaking of those uncooked, meats. So yes, having a stocked pantry, fridge, and freezer. We do have a starter grocery list to help you with those things. So like some things in the pantry to have would be things like I call pantry meals or staple meals. It doesn't have to be from the pantry, but staple meals are like things that you have always on hand to make a quick meal if you did not plan ahead. So like Mark knows this, one of our staple meals is black bean tacos. So we always have black beans, onions, the 2 or 3 spices in those, and then, some high fiber tortillas. Or it could be like a bean or lentil pasta where maybe you have some pre-grilled chicken in your freezer at all times and some frozen broccoli. So that's a really fast meal that you can always have on hand. So that would be my
very cool
next one.
Awesome. So my next 3 are not related to nutrition, but the question didn't specify nutrition. So allow me to go outside the bounds of nutrition for a little bit, which, fitness is still a passion of mine, is definitely a passion. In fact, I got into nutrition via fitness, not the other way around. And so it was because I was a fitness instructor, because I was big into fitness, I started researching the implications and the importance of nutrition. So all that's to say, my next one would be participating in strength training. I am a huge proponent of strength training. No matter the age or the life stage, everyone stands to benefit from strength training if you can do so safely. And so I do have a list that I want to rattle off, because there are people out here that are listening that just rolled your eyes because you're like, I'm not trying to be big and bulky. I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. I'm not trying to, get bigger. I just want to maintain my weight. Well, let me tell you about some of the benefits of strength training. And we'll talk about practically what this looks like. Okay. So number one, yes, it can make you stronger. That's the point of strength training, is to train to get strength. And that's a good thing. What that means is that you can be more stable. Yes, it helps you appear leaner, but it also decreases your risks of falls and injuries. And keep in mind, this becomes more and more important later in life. If you want to live independently later in life, no matter where you are, you need to start strength training like today. Okay. And so that stability training is key, not only to prevent falls, but also to be able to brace yourself if you do. And so the injury prevention, the stability is very important, not just because you want to look big and bulky. And by the way, I'm trying to look big and bulky. I've been trying for like 15 years. It's hard, and I'm not very big, right? So it's like, ladies, this is very important for you as well. So again, decreases that risk of falls and injuries. It helps manage blood sugar levels. Okay. So that's, again, outside of all the benefits that you may associate with strength training, that is another one. It promotes greater mobility and flexibility. There's a fascinating study I recently read. Did you know that yoga does not lengthen muscles, but strength training does? So I can't tell you how many times you hear females being like, "Oh, I just want to strengthen my muscles, so I do yoga," or "I just want to lengthen my muscles, so I do yoga." There's an irony. Yoga does not actually lengthen your muscles, but strength training does. So again, it promotes greater mobility, flexibility, lengthens the muscles. It makes your bones stronger, which again becomes very important later in life. It boosts self-esteem and mood. This is one of the parts of the emerging science of strength training, is just the cognitive benefits, the mental health benefits in terms of boosting mood, self-esteem. It improves brain health. It improves heart health. It promotes better quality of life. I have citations and studies for all of these, by the way. I'm just not making things up. It promotes better quality of life in certain studies. It builds muscle, and that increases your metabolic rate. So yes, building muscle is important. And by the way, that's what helps people keep excessive weight off easier long-term, is by having an increased metabolism, because muscle as a tissue requires more energy to operate than fat. Okay. So let me say that again. So muscle is like a V8 engine. Fat is like a 4-cylinder. Okay. And so that muscle requires more gas to operate, and those are calories. And so maintaining that lean athletic look, what you're going for likely, or in a maintenance phase to the question, right, is how do I maintain this weight while still enjoying food and life? Building muscle is a key component to that. It also helps burn calories efficiently. What I mean by that is there's what's loosely called the compound effect or the afterburn effect of a strength training session. And so I'm making these numbers up, by the way. They're just totally independent. But let's say you burn 300 calories on Monday from a strength training session. Okay. Through this compound effect, your body will continue to burn calories for up to 72 hours after that workout from that one workout. So you may burn 300 calories on Monday from a strength training session. Maybe on Tuesday, you burn 75 from Monday's workout. And then maybe on Wednesday, you burn 25 additional calories. So it has this compounding effect. So it's a very efficient way for your body to adapt and burn calories, which is incredibly important. And it also helps reduce body fat. Okay. So all that's to say, I did get one long list into this episode because strength training is incredibly important. It's not just about getting big and bulky. It is about so much more, everything from stability and longevity to mental health and cognitive function, right down to your metabolism. So it's incredibly important. Again, something I'm passionate about. So practically, what does this look like? I've got a recommendation here from the International Journal of Strength and Conditioning. It's their resistance training recommendations. So this is bare minimum. Maybe eventually I'll do an entire podcast on this. But if you're looking to jot something down, how do I get started with strength training? Here's the basic formula. Work each muscle group. So choose the muscle group you decide or muscle groups you decide to train that week. Could be, let's use your chest, for example. You want to train your chest with at least 10 intense sets taken to near failure. That means you could only do 1 or 2 more per week. Okay. So if I want my chest to adapt and to have a healthy chest workout that week, I need to hit my chest with 10 intense sets taken to near failure per week. I want to work in the 6 to 12 rep range most often. Okay. So on the lower end of 6, you tend to see more strength benefit. On the higher end of 12, you tend to see more muscle growth benefit. However, 6 to 12 in general, doesn't mean all the time, but in general, 10 intense sets taken in your failure per week, per muscle group, work in the 6 to 12 rep range most often. It's important to work that muscle group from a variety of angles. So if you're talking about your chest, there could be an incline press, there could be a flat press, there could be a decline press. Those are at least 3 different angles. You could hit the same muscle group. You want to rest 1 or 2 minutes between each set. I would add it can be longer than that if you require more time in order to safely do the next set, right? So if in order to do the next intense set safely, you need 3 minutes, great, take 3 minutes. And remember that volume is more important than frequency. And so what I mean by that is if you take your reps times your sets times your weight, that equals volume. So keep in mind, I recently had a client that came to me, 68-year-old male. He said he's been strength training. He's got a bit of a shoulder issue and he just can't really get above a certain weight on certain exercises. And I said, could you do another set at that existing weight? He said, oh yeah, for sure. So in that sense, he was able to increase his volume without having to increase his weight. So all that said and done, 10 intense sets taken in near failure per muscle group per week, work in the 6 to 12 rep range most often. Work those muscles from a variety of angles, rest at least 1 to 2 minutes between sets, and keep an eye on your volume and see the volume gradually increasing over time means that you are performing strength training in that regard. So that was a bit long. It was a bit of a tangent, but if you're listening and you're like, I'm at where I want to be, but I want to flourish at this healthy maintenance body weight, I highly, highly, highly recommend strength training. Thoughts on that, Danielle, or the next tip? I think you're actually muted. Are you muted? I can't hear you.
I am.
There she is. Hey,
there was a dog barking.
we're nothing if not real.
Okay, so I did have that one. I had, well, not that specific one, but I just said
went a little crazy, but yeah.
I said build physical activity into your daily routine.
Yes.
With the time period least chance of interruptions or excuses.
Good call.
So for me, that's bright and early at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. if I'm lucky. And, you know, sometimes that keeps my excuses to the minimum. It's like kind of your time, so think about exercise as not a chore or to do, but your time. You're focusing on keeping yourself healthy so that you can take care of yourself and those around you. So, and I specifically really liked how you're connecting it to later in life, because I do have grandparents still, and it's definitely sad to see when you're losing your ability to be independent. It's really hard. And, I'm just kind of curious. I don't know if they've ever strength trained, that's an older generation. So, but yeah, I think very helpful tips, Mark, on how to stay strong. So
I try.
So I guess since I kind of repeated that from yours, kind of going to my one prior, my next one was plan ahead for meals and keep dining out to a minimum. So I'm not against dining out, but you do typically get about 200 to 300 calories extra per meal when you dine out. It can be fun to save it for special occasions. And if you are planning ahead for meals, it'll just happen naturally. You don't have to focus on, I never like to focus on the negative. I always like to focus on the positive. So, I like to think about how many is it doable for you to plan ahead. Me personally don't want to spend 4 hours on a weekend to plan the rest of my meals for the week. So I do it more of a 2 to 3 meals at a time prior. So if it's just the thought, okay, I planned what I'm going to have. And then the next step, maybe the next day, go to the grocery store, etc. So make it doable for your style. I like to half prepare a meal too. So I don't typically ever, not ever, I would say maybe 50% of the time I make half of the meal. So if it calls for chopping the onions and peppers or browning the meat or grilling the chicken, I do half of it. And then I do the other half of the recipe later. So
nice.
That would be my next one.
Cool. Well, I love that. I'll key off that too, because second to last one that I had was cardiovascular training. And so now what a lot of people just heard was he's going to tell me to run a lot, right? He's going to tell me to do something I don't like to do. I have to keep doing it. The exact opposite. So the practical takeaway for cardiovascular training, I'll talk about just a quick breakup of that, is to find what you enjoy most. And I often say, I just had a client, an hour and a half before we're recording this. And I said, find the cardiovascular activity that you want to do until you're 98. That's the way to think about it. If your body allows, what would you do for the rest of your life? So for me, I love strength training. I love walking, and I love playing soccer. And if I could do that till I'm 98, I'm going to do that. Running after a soccer ball does not feel like running to me. Running on a street because I'm just trying to run 3 miles is not very fun for me. Okay. I'll do it if I'm training for something, but again, I'm training for something. So find the things that you love to do: walking, biking, hiking, rollerblading, tennis, soccer, basketball, pickleball, just walking, weighted vest walking. Again, whatever that is. With cardiovascular training, don't think about it as something that you have to do, because it's incredibly important. Think about, I want to find what I love to do. And then keep in mind, there's 3 general buckets with cardiovascular training, right? And by the way, heart disease is the #1 cause of death in America. It's #1 cause of premature death in around the world. And so I can't overemphasize how important, of course, heart health is. I hope that goes without saying, but I wanted to say it anyways. But remember, there's 3 general buckets. There's LISS, miss, and HIT, right? So there's low intensity, steady state cardio. It's something that you get a slightly elevated heart rate that you could do for a long period of time. Okay. That's just the way to remember it. So that's different for different people depending on their health. But something that is low intensity, steady state is something that has a slightly elevated heart rate that you could do for quite a bit of time. Okay. For some people, that could be a brisk walk. For some people that are in good shape, honestly, just jogging is actually low intensity, steady state for them. They could do that marathon runners can do that for hours, and so just think about what gets your heart rate up a little bit that you could do for a long period of time. That could be, again, biking, hiking, whatever it is, pickleball, whatever, anything you enjoy. Then there's moderate intensity, steady state, miss, and that's just slightly elevated heart rate from that you can do for a moderate amount of time. You might not be able to do it for 4 hours if someone made you, but you could do it, 30 minutes probably. Okay. So you're biking at a much faster pace. You're jogging. Maybe you're doing a sprint workout. You're doing swimming, something like that. And then there is HIIT, and HIIT by definition is high intensity interval training that can be done for a much shorter period of time. All of these have benefits. All of them have various ways in which you can accomplish these. So we won't get into all that. But suffice it to say, cardio in general is safe for most people, right? It's easily accessible and sustainable. I mean, I've worked with clients that live in very wintry places, and they can still go to the mall and walk. They can still go find enclosed places. They can go to a gym. They can participate in cardiovascular training in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not outdoors. It's easily accessible, sustainable. I work with musicians here in Nashville. I've had musicians that have been clients, and they go out on tour. They can't always find a gym. They can't always find a weight room, even though if they want to. However, what they can do is they can go for walks. They can bring a vest to walk in. Some of them pack a bike in their trailer, right? Some of them put a bike with the gear and go biking and do that sort of stuff. So it's generally easily accessible, generally sustainable. It can be particularly effective in reducing. I've seen some fascinating studies recently that even independent of weight loss, right, it can have a profound effect on what's known as visceral fat. And so subcutaneous fat is fat beneath the skin. Visceral fat is deep within the abdomen cavity. It's around your organs, and it's far more dangerous than subcutaneous fat. And we have seen in the literature that cardiovascular training can be particularly beneficial at reducing visceral fat. Now, back to the question. Okay, the question was, what are some healthy habits? So all that's to say, very practically, build in, just like you were talking about, Danielle, just build in what you love to do. Again, I love strength training. I love strength training. Like, I'm not doing it because, he's got a list of benefits and he just has to do it. I love it. You may not love it. That's okay. I'll try to convince you otherwise. But when it comes to cardio, right, like, I don't want to just run 3 miles a day. So I play in a pickup soccer league. I play in an outdoor league, and I go for walks, and I have a weight vest, and I like to walk. I like either walk my dog, or I walk with a vest, or both, et cetera, et cetera. Those are things that I like to do. I don't run 5 miles a day. Why? Because I don't like it. It's not sustainable, right? I've done that. I've done that for sports. I've done it for the military. I've done it, et cetera, because I had to. But now that I don't have to, I get to find the things that I want to. So that's one that I would say is, just like you were talking about, is build that stuff in, build that activity into your daily lifestyle by thinking, what do I like to do first, not what do I have to do? And this is a great environment for you to do that if you're in a healthy place with your weight and you just want to maintain that. Find the things that you love to do and do more of those. So that's my thought. You're muted again. Can you hear me?
I did it again.
You did it again.
I'm so sorry.
It's the episode. We took 2 weeks off. Well, in your defense, you recorded a podcast that I haven't published yet. We took 2 weeks off, and we're a little rusty at this whole thing. So you're back.
Okay, I'm back. So my last one is to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night.
Good call.
So,
good call. I had 7 to 9. Maybe we can do a podcast episode where we fight about whether it's 8 or 9. I had 7 to 9.
I like 7 to 9 because I actually get probably close to 9 every night.
So do I.
8 to 9 is probably what I get best.
Yeah. I think in general, when I was researching sleep, and there's a lot of stuff I don't know about sleep, I'm not an expert, but I was kind of looking for what's that cross-sectional recommendation. I saw a lot of benefits in that 7 to 9, so I've kind of done that. But suffice it to say, full night's sleep, right, is huge, physiologically, neurologically, psychologically, metabolically, et cetera, et cetera.
I would say, to make it practical and a little bit easier, is to try to go to bed at the same time each night. I think people that struggle a little bit with this might not be aiming for the same bedtime every night. I think your body naturally will get more sleepy at that time if you're doing it regularly, and naturally you'll wake up maybe even before your alarm. That's my favorite, is when I wake up before my alarm. Even if it's earlier than I wanted to, I feel a little bit more rested. So that would be my last one.
I agree 100%. And just in terms of the question, maintaining that healthy body weight, what we have seen in the research is that, full night's sleep helps fight cravings, so where you may during the day perhaps over consume calories. This is one of the things that naturally helps you, maintain or keep your calorie intake in check, is because think about that. If a calorie is energy and your body is underslept or it's tired and it's reaching for food, you want a snack, it makes sense that your body is reaching, not because it's necessarily hungry or not because it wants to chew something Why? It's searching for energy. Why? Because it's tired, right? And we've done a podcast in the past on intermittent fasting. The cool thing about IF, which there are benefits to intermittent fasting, if you get a full night's sleep, congrats, you've just intermittent fasted in accordance with your circadian rhythm, right? And so those benefits tend to be realized in like 8 to 10 hours, correct, Danielle, of intermittent fasting, right? And so if you just stop eating an hour or two before you go to bed and you get a full 8-9 hours of sleep, guess what? You just did IF. I get that question all the time. What do you think about IF? I tell people, I do intermittent fasting every single day. They're like, are you serious? What's your eating window? I'm like, from when I wake up till when I go to bed. That's my eating window. They're like, wait, I don't get it. I'm like, it doesn't have to be 12 or 16 or 18 or 20 hours. You get the benefit from IF just from sleeping. So all that's to say, it does have body composition. We do see studies that people that are underslept consume more calories. That'll pull you out of that maintenance calorie, realm. And we see people start to overconsume. And that doesn't even take into account the profound implications it has for psychology, emotional health, muscle preservation, metabolic rate, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm with you on that. 7 to 9 hours. Do what you can. Also, here's a fun fact. I just started. I shouldn't do this. I'm going to do an entire episode on my new morning routine because I've been dabbling. This is a teaser. So if you've made it, it's like 46 and a half minutes. If you're still listening, congrats. The two of you that are still listening to this episode, congrats. Here's a bit of a teaser. I've been dabbling in neuroscience. Okay. And there's a couple folks that I've been reading, some of my favorite researchers and voices in this space. All that's to say on sleep. If you want one more practical advice on getting a good night's sleep, I would say your good night's sleep begins the minute you wake up. And what I mean by that is research has shown that if you get sunlight viewing, so get outside. If it's a sunny day, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes. If it is a cloudy day, if you're in the Pacific Northwest and the Midwest, it's been cloudy for a while, it's spring, whatever it is. If it's a cloudy day, there is still sunlight coming through. Right? There's a reason you can see outside even when it's cloudy. It's because the sun is coming through. So 5 to 10 minutes if it's sunny, 20 to 30 minutes if it's cloudy. But here's something really cool. Long story short, if you get sunlight viewing in the first hour that you wake up, it sets your circadian clock to fall asleep 14 to 16 hours later. It's a beautiful trick that neuroscience has shown time and time again in the literature. So that's just a little benefit. I've been doing some other things on the neuroscience stuff that maybe eventually I'll do like a podcast episode on. But as it relates to sleep and maintaining a healthy weight, let that be another tool in your pocket to play with to begin getting a good night's sleep actually the minute you wake up. So that was my finale. Any thoughts on that? Or like, what the heck are we talking about? Why is Mark talking about neuroscience? So.
You're good. You're good. I think that was great. Fantastic.
Very cool. All right. Well, if this has been helpful, again, the two of you that are still listening, 48 minutes in, thank you so much. If this has been helpful, we'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast so you receive notifications of our upcoming episodes. Be sure to drop us a review. Let us know how we're doing. I just read through our reviews, just a few nights ago, to be honest. And so we actually look at that. It's just not just a thing that we ask for. So it spins up the algorithm. We actually genuinely look for that feedback. So leave us a review if this has been helpful. Also, just share it with a friend. So you got a friend sitting in a good spot. You're in a good spot. You guys talk about this stuff from time to time, or they're curious about what do you do once you get to a healthy maintenance weight. Feel free to share this episode. We'd love to help as many people as possible. If you're on social media, you can follow us at Imago Nutrition. That's IMAGO Nutrition across all the major social media platforms. And as always, thanks to Happy Pill, the band, for our theme song, Thinkin Bout Food. We'll see you.